Welcome back, everybody, to the podcast Cosmic, Season 1, Episode 12. Sorry we've been away for so long. We took a 2-week hiatus, but we are back and better than ever, baby. Um, I'm Vlad, and I'm going to take
Marty,
it around the horn.
Keith,
George.
Horns up, everybody, because it's going to be a metal episode today, because we got plenty of stuff to talk about. So, in the 2 weeks that we've been away, we missed a couple of episodes of Moon Knight, which we will obviously dig very deeply into. We will also talk about some news, a new trailer, teaser trailer, whatever you want to call it, for Doctor Strange. We'll analyze that a little bit. We'll touch on a little bit of some shows out there, specifically Severance, which is, if you're not watching it, you are dead to me. And also, we'll talk about Halo. And we will touch on Elden Ring and how some of us are faring in it and what we enjoy about it. And lastly, and certainly not least, we will be talking about Metal Lords, the new movie that came out on Netflix yesterday, uh, April 8th, from D.B. Weiss, one of the co-creators of the Game of Thrones series, and Tom Morello of Rage Against the Machine and Audio Slave as executive producer. Some of us here are pretty tried and true metalheads, and we are really excited to talk about it. But without any further ado, before we jump into Moon Knight, like and subscribe, follow us down below, and we'll kick off with Moon Knight. We have 2 episodes of Moon Knight. Who wants to start? Nobody wants to start about Moon Knight?
what can you say about it? I mean, it was fun. It's fun, really, and I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to seeing the next one. When's it sucks to do the weekly thing. I know we've talked about the waiting and versus binging, but I'm excited. I like that feeling. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that comes in. I mean, we'll be halfway through next one, next
Which is hard to believe, right?
I know it's crazy. So, and it still seems like they have a lot to go over, but I'm enjoying it. They definitely, the acting is great. I love Ethan Hawke. I think he's doing a
Oh,
fantastic
he's
job.
amazing.
I love how we're talking, how he's trying to justify his switch over to the new, the new goddess, as it were. And then it just breaks it down into, but I'm not cool with child murder. I love that, so a lot of stuff, a lot of good stuff. I'm excited for it. The effects are great. I mean, to me, it's still a little, like, I know they were saying, oh, it's going to be dark. It's going to be different. It's still a little light. It's still kind of, it feels like light to me.
compared to the Netflix
Yeah.
MCU stuff, right? Yeah.
But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it. I think it's a good broad audience. There's scary parts, and certainly if I was a child, a younger kid, I'd be like, oh my gosh. But I think it's just enough that it's exciting. It's interesting. The production of it is really well done. I mean, sets and everything. You really get a sense of the feel, like when he's in Egypt, and it's like, oh, get the nice, like that last scene where he opens up the curtain. So far, and I like Isaacs. He's good.
I can't say enough about Oscar Isaac. I mean, he's doing like a tour de force in terms
Yeah,
of
yeah.
acting. He's all over the place.
It's an acting performance. It's a very physical performance because he has to differentiate between Stephen and Mark. So and you could tell just either physically in the way he uses his voice,
Mm-hmm.
and even Hawk. There's like a quiet menace to him. I think the one thing that's interesting is there's never been like this really big evil moment. Everything is just like kind of even keeled, measured. Like he gets slightly, you can hear the tone in his voice when he doesn't get the scarab.
Yeah.
But like everything about it, and even then, it's still not. It's just sinister enough. But he's never like crossing and over the line into like this, huge theatrical, performance.
I really do like that. It's sort of like you're dealing with 2 sort of avatars of,
Mhm.
Khonshu's avatar and Amit's avatar. You have 2 people, right? These 2 characters, Harrow and obviously Spectre, are sort of battling for this. It's a war of gods. It's a war of the gods being played on a mortal level for the most part. But what's interesting is, I know we're jumping around because we have 2 episodes worth of stuff to talk about, but it's interesting that you kind of see like sort of Mark's, I don't want to say deal with the devil, but whatever deal he made with Khonshu right now, sort of, it doesn't seem like it's a very, it seems like very one-sided almost. You know
Well,
what I
certainly
mean?
Conchu comes off as a jerk.
Well, it's also that, you know, he's trying to protect his wife because he doesn't want his wife to become sort of the vessel for Khonshu as opposed to him, right? He's protecting her, which is, and what I really enjoy about it is sort of like Moon Knight has already been established while this when the show starts. We just don't know it, and we're kind of in the same boat as Steven is. You know, Steven with a V, not a PH, but Steven with a V. I kind of like that too. And you know, there's that whole feeling that what's the purpose of Steven only seeing the jackal? Nobody else sees the jackal. Is something going on in his mind? Is it part of his disassociated sort of personality, or what's going on? Is it really the gods playing with him and doing what they're doing because he is Khonshu, that he only sees what's happening and nobody else sees it around him? I don't know. The whole, you know what I'm talking about, the whole scene when him and his wife are fighting it. And then also interesting, and you guys can pretty much give me a better idea about this, the Mr. Knight persona. It's kind of interesting in this one, it's really Steven's
it's different
creation,
it's
right?
interpretive. It's an interpretive view on the Moon Knight avatar through different personalities. So I don't know if you were done, Vlad.
I am. Yeah, go ahead.
So just let me take 2 episodes. First episode I thought was a spectacular introduction to the concepts of the show. You really got an idea that he was a troubled person that had a mysterious things going on in his life. And they really opened it up. Like you got introduced to the bad guy. You got introduced to some of the concepts. You got introduced that he has multiple personalities, and that dissociative disorder that he has was really played out excellently in that first episode throughout. Like when they did everything that happened at the restaurant when he was supposed to meet the person he had a date on. I thought that was really well handled. And like you said, in that specific episode, before we get to the second one, Isaac, it was really a solo performance.
Yes, it was.
He did an amazing job throughout it, handling every aspect, introducing us to his nebbish self amid the action, amidst being in, I don't know if he was in Brazil or wherever he was. I can't remember where he was, where he first meets Ethan Hawke's character.
He's supposed to be, it's not Brazil. It's supposed to be, I think it's supposed to be Austria or.
Yeah. I'm sorry if I didn't remember that. And that was so well handled, that whole scene. And then he gives up to Mark, but you don't see it.
Yeah.
When he gives up to Mark, and you just see people laid out.
Well, it's like you're going through what you're experiencing, what he's experiencing, right?
But the audience is Steven.
And then they introduce the concepts really well. And then you get to the second episode, right? And remember, in the first episode, Ethan Hawke's character confronts him. They do a lot in that episode.
They do.
And one thing I got, like George, you mentioned it, and I felt the exact same way. There's a menace about his subtlety, his calmness.
He did a great
job.
job.
He knows what he's being asked to do. And he's not doing it with a cold efficiency. He's doing it with a kindness. Because
belief.
What he is going to make a better world.
Yeah, that's the word.
I said this kind of funny to people online. I did those 2 reviews on our Facebook page. He's really one of my favorite villains all of a sudden. It's like, because of the things you mentioned, he's not out there going and, flying up into space and shooting blasts at people. He's kind of got this quiet, he's got a mission like Thanos did. So and that to me is engaging, super engaging. So you get to episode 2 and the rails come off the show in terms of they pack a lot in. He meets his wife. He becomes full front introduced to the concepts of the Moon Knight, of Khonshu, of Amet, of Ethan Hawke's character. He's brought into that thing. And once the action hits, it's really great. Like you guys said, we're introduced to, there's this thing where he doesn't want to give up. For those of you who haven't seen it yet, he doesn't want to give up to his other personality to let himself go. He's Steven. He's a person. He's not going to let himself go to become Mark. No. But he has to help this woman, his wife, right? And he does, but he doesn't give up. Like Mark says, let me become Moon Knight. I'm going to kick everybody's ass. I will handle this. I will kill this guy. He's like, no, I'm going to save everybody. And he takes on the Moon Knight persona. But it's not that super heroic, super action Moon Knight. It's his version of what he sees himself to be as Moon Knight. And he's got all the power. He's even got what he thinks are kick-ass weapons, but he doesn't know how to use them. And he gets his ass kicked. And it's so well handled, well done. Like how he's acting when he's doing it. And then you have Mark talking to him again. He's like, listen, man, you did your best. I'm the only one who could save you.
But I like also how he explains what it's like to be outside his own body in like
Yeah,
displaced, like the
Yeah.
fear that it was like, and then you're realizing that, well, this is what Mark is dealing with all the time.
that's right.
So
Like-
I love that how they explain like how the personalities switch and what happens to that other personality when it's not in control.
Yeah, right. That's a
Well
whole
done.
other level because he's a prisoner. Somebody's
Yeah.
got to be the prisoner.
And the feelings that he's
But
experiencing.
why wasn't it
Yeah.
happening? I guess one of the mysteries is why wasn't it happening before? You know,
Well,
we
yeah.
don't know.
I think it was because he was dying. Because I think
Right.
Mark Stone was dying somewhere, and that's when he made the deal with Khonshu.
But I mean, Stevens, the personality of Steven. That's
Well,
what I'm trying
the
to.
question is, here's another thing, though.
So I'm hoping we'll find out. Yeah.
Well, he never had to become Moon Knight before. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that Harrow was originally the original avatar of Khonshu,
Yeah, that was cool.
which was a nice. So here's two things. So I think the one thing is the what's her? What was it? The wife's name?
Layla.
Layla is yelling, "Get the suit! Get the suit!"
Yeah,
Steven, that's the suit. It's like the
yeah, that was excellent. Right.
That's what I love.
everything.
I like that.
Like his
not-
interpretation.
His interpretation. I like it. It's
So
really, really, really a smart.
But here's my thing.
shot.
So after seeing this episode, and this is the one question I have. There's got to be a third personality.
Yeah, because they keep on talking about 3.
But the question is, because who made the date with Steven's coworker?
Mark.
It couldn't have been Mark,
No, I
Why?
don't think so.
because Mark is in love
He's
with
married.
Layla.
yeah, Mark wouldn't have done that.
Oh, that's
You
a
got
good
that
point.
right.
That is actually a
He's
really
in love
good
with
point.
Layla. The divorce thing is just to keep her safe from him, from
He
Khonshu
wouldn't-
and
right, he
everything
wouldn't.
else. It's definitely not Steven.
You don't remember it.
He didn't know. He was surprised that she told him about the date.
You got the cabbie personality, right?
Right.
So it's got to be Jake, right, from the comics. I don't know if he'll be a cabbie in this or what, but that's got to, because
Who was
Yeah.
the
One of those-
spray painted guy?
Well, what I like about the
Huh.
spray painted guy, it's
Yes.
sort of somebody did an analysis about this, and it's true. It's almost like the living statue dude and his fish, right? He can't. He's not. He's when he talks and he opens up about himself, he's talking to somebody who can't answer him back, and the only
Right.
person that can really answer him back is himself.
Right.
It's really like Mark who can really talk to him. I really kind of like that.
So if I got what the main thrust of the conflict between Khonshu and Amet, or the villain and him, really are, is he's for Khonshu, he avenges,
Mhm.
right? He rights wrong.
Justice. It's all about justice.
Ahmed
right?
is saying, screw that. I know what the scales say. Let's kill the people who are going to commit crimes need to die.
So
before
even
they-
from,
before they
it's
commit.
like, right, it's like don't even give him the chance to.
Right.
to
And that's the major kind of conflict between the two deities and the avatars. And it's interesting how that's going to play out. But I like that it's a big concept. Again, like we saw in the Avengers, it was when you had Thanos. Thanos was a big idea villain. Whether it's a big idea or not, it's a comic booky thing. But I like that there's this big idea, and I think this is an interesting thing that we're learning now about the Marvel universe, Marvel MCU universe, is that it's much bigger than we thought. So there's ancient beings, space gods who've been on Earth. There's gods who've created avatars to mete out justice throughout the planet. There's probably going to be a werewolf by night running around. There's vampires because we know Blade is coming. So there's this whole world. There's Kang the Conqueror out there. It's to me, they're really revealing a lot, and I really enjoy it. I'm very curious. And again, then we could open this up. I don't know why I have to get this out. I'm very curious to see. All the other shows had other characters coming in and out that we knew about. Do you think we're going to see anybody?
You
by
took the
the
words
time we
right
get
out of
to
my
the
mouth.
sixth episode?
I'm perfectly okay if we don't, to be honest with you, because
The
Then
story
how
is
does he get into
self-contained.
the Marvel U. Doesn't he
mean-
have to?
well, there could be something at the end, right? But I think
Yeah.
telling the story right now without any pre-established characters invading the populace, and doing this thing, because it's small scale in the sense of where it takes place, but it's a bigger scale in terms of what the stakes are. There's a lot more with the stakes here. The interesting things that you want to know where the MCU is going with is because we have seen many different sets of gods, right?
Yep.
So we've seen the North's gods. We've obviously seen what the Eternals and the Celestials and all that stuff, and now we're seeing the Egyptian gods. How do all these? What's their awareness of one another? What? And that's not something that I think is going to be touched on in Moon Knight, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I just would rather this is a battle of good and evil. To
Yeah, I'm fine with that too.
But it's again, we all know that didn't Harrow say at one point, it was in the first episode or the second episode, that like millions are going to die, right? So essentially, it's what Thanos did on a smaller scale on the Earth. It's not the universe, it's the Earth. We get that, right? It's something to that effect, which is fine. At the end of the day, I don't think it's really about. It's really about the character study of Mark Spector and who he is and what he's going to be and what ultimately is going to. My take on this is, I hope at the end of this, it's sort of like he's operating out of New York. He's back in New York, so he's back in New York. Everything is back to where it should be, and that's where he's going to be working. I mean, but maybe it's not. Maybe they're going to go in a completely different.
Might have
direction.
offended the no Brits that are watching our show.
Yeah. Not that I have a problem, but he's not. But we all know that he's not really a Brit, right? He's an international.
Like how Layla was like, "What's with the accent? This was a bad accent."
Like and character development. What great character development with Layla. The whole thing with the poem, and the fact that Steven's favorite poem is her poem.
Yeah, there's great stuff. Like
all the subtle stuff going on.
Of the cast is great. Another thing that really impresses me about what Marvel does is, I would never have thought I would ever seen a Moon Knight solo show ever.
Well, I think it's testament to what they have.
Yeah,
they have the cachet
with these comic book properties. Just great job.
But it's the care. It's the care for the story. It's the care for the character. It's
care for the casting. The casting. I mean, again, the secret weapon of the MCU is the casting. I mean.
Right. It's not stunt casting. It's not like somebody who's. I mean, look. I mean, I don't.
F. Murray Abraham as Khonshu is great because
he's hilarious.
He's great.
But the thing is, I don't mind that Keith.
And this kind of like, there's like an ash holelessness to him. Like,
very much. Keith, to touch on something you said about the horror aspect, what I get from the horror aspect is not horror in the jump scare kind of stuff that we get today. I'm getting the classic Universal horror vibe. That's what I get from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like them when they're running across the rooftop, I'm looking at the jackal. It's kind of like the werewolf.
I like that. I like that whole feeling, and I like the whole.
And the music too. The music during those scenes remind me more of that kind of dramatic music, less than the kind of like Michael Myers or Chung Chung of Jason.
No. It works. It really does, and I like that. I also do like that now it's completely going over to Egypt, so it's going to take place in Egypt.
I do think Keith is very, very on point though about it. I remember listening to all the like preview stuff, just like you. It's going to be the scariest show we ever had, and we're like, are they really going to do this on Disney Plus? Now we know how they did it.
It's Disney Dark. It's Disney Dark. That's what it is.
Look, the let's be honest, the jackal scene in the museum, the first one, right? That whole scene is intense. It really is. It's intense, and for little kids, who are there, who grew up on Spider-Man, that whole scene when he's in the bathroom and the door is pounding, and like he's fighting, looking at himself in the mirror. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, if you have a 6-year-old kid or a 5-year-old kid who's watching,
they should not be watching,
and all of a sudden they're sitting there looking at themselves in the mirror, waiting for themselves to kind of look. Even it's not Halloween, it's none of that, but I'm talking about even when he's walking in the museum and his reflection stops and he keeps on walking and his reflection turns. That's haunted house shit. That's the type.
Like I said, to me it's kind of thematically like when I think of the Paramount or the Universal monsters, kind of like.
Yeah, it's like a hey, I bet.
Yeah.
Even like with Khonshu showing up in the corridors with the way the light flashing, and he's just
awesome.
Oh my god, that is great. I like even the little things, like when I like the angles in the second episode when he's looking up and Khonshu's up on the top of the roof by the moon, and then he's up there and he's
I
hearing
loved
him
it.
and he's doing all those little things are really, really well done. It feels small, but and this is where I feel now it becomes like, how do I say it? It's almost like Raiders, where Raiders takes place in a certain
I was
area.
just gonna say,
Now they're in Tanis, right? Now they're going to start looking for the Well of Souls, and now there's going to be this whole, if you've seen the commercials, something ends up happening. Something ends up, there's a whole big battle where he protects Layla, where he puts his thing around her and stuff. So I think there's going to be, more action is coming. But I got to tell you, I mean, the darker parts of it are obviously Mark is killing people. He's definitely killing people.
Yeah.
Right. So, and
he drops an F-bomb.
No, they're just sleeping.
Yeah, they're just sleeping.
Disney
throws
dark,
cupcakes
Disney
at
dark.
them. So
blood, there's lots of blood.
They're just
There's lots of blood.
The shit gets blown up.
Did he drop an F-bomb? Did he actually?
Apparently there was one F-bomb. There was an F-bomb somewhere. Where was it? I forgot where it was.
I don't remember it.
But I read that there was an F-bomb. The thing I was going to ask you guys in the first episode when he's driving the truck. Is it Khonshu who actually takes out the last two guys by dropping all that stuff, or is that just because of all this? Remember all those logs coming down and get those last two cars?
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
because he's all freaking
you heard
out.
His voice saying something, right?
Right. Because
it was funny because that was what this asked Ed about the Ethan Hawke scenes when he's like serving him the soup and they're at the table. And
great.
Like I love that he's blowing shit up and he's like flipping tape. He's like, yeah, that's all he can do. But yeah, so it makes sense that he can like drop some tree stuff coming in.
Right, that's right.
That was great. That was
really fun.
Kill him.
But it's also, I think, like going back to Ethan Hawke's character, think about it. Think about how the opening scene of the show is Ethan Hawke doing the whole
his ritual,
and putting the glass in his sandals.
Yeah, I saw some really good analysis on that. I mean, really, and nods off. Look, I know we're doing our podcast, but nods off to all these people who do these kind of like breakdown videos, man. The thing is, we've been fans for 40 years, reading comics and watching these movies and stuff, and we can't even notice this stuff. And these guys are like,
they're doing the hieroglyphics, and specifically we're talking about like new rock stars, which we got to give them mad props for what they do. But it's like, that's a good point about some of the details. It's like, Harrow is putting glass in his things, and how is sand created? By pulverizing glass, right? Yep. While Mark or Steven has the glass, has the sand there, so his footprint is already he's like closer to Egypt than Harrow is theoretically. That's sort of like the symbolism of it. But I gotta tell you, it's really surprising. It's different. I will say it's different than any of the other shows. You could say the same thing about WandaVision. Yeah. WandaVision was different because like, what the fuck is WandaVision?
I really enjoyed WandaVision too.
So, I mean, WandaVision was more of a slower burn for me.
Yeah.
Because WandaVision didn't become WandaVision until like
I actually enjoyed WandaVision up until the point where it became more superhero stuff.
Really?
But
so you liked it? You liked it that way?
Yeah, but
I really love because it explored her fractured mind and the power that she had, and bringing Vision into that the way that she did, or they did it. It was like this really. I mean, and they had great writing. And of course, everyone's going to talk about one of the favorite lines about with grief being, beautiful. I mean, just like that captured a lot of it. And then when it got more to the superhero stuff, it was kind of like to me it was a little goofy, but it was in keeping with everything. But I think the shows have been really fun. I mean, I think the weakest show for me has been the Winter Soldier Falcon one.
Yeah, and I think
really,
wow.
I have to say, only because I'm basing it off of like Civil War or no, not Civil War, Winter Soldier, the Captain America movie. Like to me, that would have been was what it would have been.
I think
I think the weakest show has been What If.
No,
I like What If. I think What If had a couple of weak episodes, but Winter Soldier and Falcon and Winter Soldier I enjoyed because it was.
I didn't particularly like that
lethal weaponish type of thing.
Right.
I'll tell you
But again, weakest in terms of the TV show.
Right, they're all good. I mean,
they're all good, but for me, the Falcon, the Winter Soldier is probably the weakest, even though I didn't want it to be. I think it had the best character.
I enjoyed it
all time.
character development, but the problem was you could tell that they actually switched the story because there was a whole viral story that they had to switch, so they didn't look the scenes between Bucky and Sam, their friendship, their partnership, how Sam becomes Captain America, all
No, but even the captain and Battlestar, there was some great stuff there too.
right. It's all
Zemo?
good. That's all good. But Zemo was amazing. Dancing
Zemo
Zemo
was
was
fun.
awesome. There's great, but the storyline is all of it together is sort of like to me. Loki was one of the best, beginning to
Yeah.
end. Right.
I enjoyed
Loki was
it
great.
a lot.
What if I was not
Glorious
looking forward to
purpose.
What If, and then What If in the last 2 or 3
Went out with a
episodes
bang.
just created. It basically said, "Oh no, this is probably one of the most important shows out
But
there."
that's
because
what I didn't like about What If. To me, What If was supposed to be What If. Like it shouldn't have anything to do necessarily with the universe,
but they
but
I
they
get-
made
I
it
get
into
you.
it. So
I
to
get
me, it
you.
was like, I never say I didn't care for that part.
Well,
But
that's
I'll say
every
this- oh, go
DCEU.
ahead.
That's every DCEU movie now. They're all
Of
what
course.
ifs. They're all
So,
Elseworlds.
That's the problem I have.
All I can say about this is about the Disney Plus MCU Marvel TV shows. It's the fucking gift that keeps on giving.
Oh yeah.
I really had no expectation for Moon Knight. I know I was excited for it, but I didn't know what I was going to get. It might be one of my favorites. It's like I'm loving it. I'm loving it. It's anybody watching this. If there's been a reason why you didn't watch it, you didn't know about Moon Knight, you don't know who he is, you don't know his lore,
It doesn't
you
matter.
don't know how he fits
Watch
in
it.
the Marvel universe. None of that matters. You get it all.
Have we
Yeah.
heard from Sienkiewicz about it? Has he said anything about
No,
it?
he's happy. He's happy. I follow him on Facebook. He's very
He's not
posts
Alan
quite a
Mooring
bit,
it.
but he didn't say anything specifically that I can remember recently over it. He's
No,
done some
because
nice
it
Moon
is.
Knight
It's
pieces,
like
I'll
it's
tell you that much.
different, right? It's different than what was originally
Yeah,
out
it's not the
there.
comic. It's not
Yeah.
like
No, it's
they
the
change
MCU.
everything, but I think they've done a lot here of taking different versions because the problem with a character like Moon Knight in the comics, as popular as he is at times, he's not popular enough to keep an ongoing book.
Mhm.
Right. It
So
seems like he had.
every couple of years there's a reinvention.
Right. There's
Right.
been like 5 reinventions of him so
Right.
far.
And there've been some effing good ones, which the show takes from, but they've taken it all and done this.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's good.
And I know some of the guys that did the art on some of the versions that they're taking it from. It's really a great version. Like what they've given us on the show is fun, funny, interesting, great actors, a fun show to watch, well produced, great production. Just keep going. The music's great.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend anybody who's kind of stayed away from it because they didn't know the character. They thought about the violence.
The
There's some
violence-
of it there,
come on, the
even
violence
compared
is
to some
not-
of the other shows.
The violence
But it's
is
not
really.
scary, as anybody said. It's not a rated R show.
Mm.
It's
No.
a lot of fun. You can watch it.
It's fine.
it's
I
really worth
think
it.
I think it's. I'm really excited to see where it goes, and
Absolutely.
I think we've said this before, right? That I think the shows in Phase 4, the shows have been stronger than the movies collectively. Let's take out Spider-Man, but collectively they've been stronger. In
Well,
terms
not
of
better
story.
than Morbius.
The less we say about Morbius, does everybody here know about the shit show that is the post-credit scenes for Morbius and what they're
Yes.
Yeah, we talked about.
Okay, so I think that
Has it made any more money?
No, it's
But it
it's
did
shit
the
in
first
bed.
2 weeks. Wait.
It's shit in the
Then
bed.
it's a good-
Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is about to ass rape it this week.
Yeah.
Justifiably so. It should.
I would do that to a vampire.
Justifiably.
Well, you got Knuckles. He's got those big fists.
It does.
Justifiably so. So look, he's got to look, man. It's. Was it George? Was it you who said it, or somebody said it? That the whole purpose is that they have to sort of. Sony has to keep on putting out these like Madam Web movies, the Venom movies, because if they don't, they're going to lapse and lose rights to Spider-Man, and then Marvel takes over. So they're constantly putting out crap. Craven's going to be. I'm sorry, these movies are going to be crap. I think the only ones that potentially are going to be good are going to be the Into the Spider-Verse movies, but those are good on a different level. They're not on the level that No Way Home is.
It's like a good one-shot comic book. You go watch it and you talk to your friends
Right,
about
Done
it.
by a
because, I mean-
great and a great art team, a great writing team.
Right,
It's like
and
they
That's
do
a
one
great
shot.
art team. It's a great art team. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Hey, look, did you see them do
Did you see this?
Spider-Man in a manga style?
Right.
That was
That's great.
awesome.
Right. It's an Elseworld.
Yeah.
It's an Elseworld. It's a
That's
what
true,
if.
it
It's a
is.
what if.
Or the,
Speaking of Elseworlds and
the
multiverses, should we
Ultimate universe or whatever.
switch over to Doctor Strange? I know there was a another trailer that dropped, like a half.
TV trailer or
30
something.
second.
For the
This guy-
tickets. It's for the tickets.
Well, for
Everybody
me,
get their
I
tickets?
don't give a shit. Let me just see the movie already.
I'm with you. I don't think they're showing anything new
No.
right now in terms of story.
You have a definitive
So
opinion on this.
Defender
do.
Strange with a third eye. No, Evil Strange with a third eye now.
Right, but I'm not talking about story beats. There's nothing. You're not seeing anything.
Well, you see the twins in this one, right?
Yes, you see the twins.
Yeah.
But are the
one of the
twins the
twins.
kids? Are the twins
Yeah.
the kids? That's the
Yeah.
thing.
Wanda's kids.
You see a couple of different things. There was a couple of different scenes you didn't
Little
see
snippets of
before. You see
Yeah.
him fighting Mordo, right? Which you didn't see before. A physical battle with Mordo with some sort
Different
of
demon
weapon.
too.
And then you see her, it looks like she's teaming up with Wong to face some other demon.
Or
with
she's
some other
controlling
demons
the,
helping
and she's
him.
controlling the demons. The demons.
Oh,
the
she
kids
is?
become the,
Okay.
or she. That's one of the things that they're saying, because her hands are up and she's got red magic in them and their eyes are red. So she's wondering.
Hex
People
magic.
are wondering whether or not she's controlling the
Yeah.
demons.
I'm the person who loves seeing more and more and more spoilers. Give me all of them. Show me
I'm the
80% of the
opposite.
movie. I just love it, and I'll pick it apart, and then I'll go see the movie. I was super excited when it dropped. When it dropped, and I saw it hit my YouTube feed, my mind exploded again. I just love anything having to do with.
And that's why they do it. And that's why I'm not like going to be like, but I know, but
Yeah, I
for me,
feel
it's
like we're not going to get anything else now until like anything.
It's a
When
month
did it come out?
It's a month away.
Less than a month away. Yeah,
Only a month?
less than a
Yeah.
month
Holy smokes!
to the Batmobile, right?
I'm super excited now.
The MCU movies, I do not want spoilers for like something like Morbius. Spoil it away because I'm not going to pay money to see that shit.
George, are you going to see it first day?
No, second day. There's no way first day with that many people. Maybe like on the weekend or something.
All right, because I want to know when we could talk about it in the chat without me getting cursed out.
Does that mean that we're going to try? When are we going? That means the podcast is not going to be like on a Saturday, so everyone
We'll probably
goes
have to push it to a
Strange?
Saturday so we can see the movie. You know?
Yeah, it's got to be a mega multiverse of madness extravaganza. Because I won't be able to talk about anything else. I'll probably be pacing the room and jumping up and down.
Nice.
Yeah, and they came out with some more posters. So some posters for the various film versions that are going to be released, an IMAX version, a 3D version, etc. They were all very interesting. I didn't get any additional revelations from them. Looking at them.
Yeah. Well, everybody's talking about the blue book, which is potentially, if it's not the Darkhold, it's the opposite of the Darkhold book.
The Book of Vishanti.
Mm.
Yeah. So there's this theory that's going around that they're going to find the contrasting power to. I don't know what that means in terms of.
I thought you saw the whole script already.
No. We had, well, I don't know,
Spoilers.
but I saw a Reddit post that was about 1.5 miles long about the movie, and it didn't have that.
Okay.
I think there's been reshoots. There's been.
You want me to go
stuff
through the stuff in that
No,
post?
that's okay.
that we don't have. all
George,
that.
No.
you fucking killed me. Anyway, he turned into werewolf by night.
We don't want no spoilers here. No spoiler territory. Look, it's going to be here before you know it.
Yeah.
And look, there's other stuff coming. I mean, before we jump, talk about, I mean, are we done with Marvel? I think.
Yeah,
we
I
are.
think like he said it best. There was nothing really there.
Right, but there's
There's no-
stuff. There's stuff. I got to tell you, there's some shows that we want to discuss, which we've been watching, and then there's also stuff. April is. I just looked at my sort of like schedule. There's stuff all over the place. There's Better Call Saul season 6, the final season.
Final
starting.
season.
Then there's Barry season 3 on HBO. Barry, I don't know if you guys are watching Barry, but Barry's fucking
I
great.
didn't even see the I know there's a preview for it, right? Did you see it?
Yeah. I've seen both seasons. You should watch it. It's fucking great. Both Bill Hader and Henry Winkler are amazing on that show. Great show. Funny as shit.
Did he get nominated for a Emmy for that?
He won
Henry Winkler?
the Emmy
He won
for
it.
it. Yeah.
Bill Hader did?
And then there's Ozark.
Yeah.
Ozark is coming.
End of this month, yeah.
So and then for all of those people who were too lazy to not see Batman, Batman will be on the 19th. So in like 10 days, Batman's coming to HBO Max, which
It is.
Yep, it'll be here.
Yeah, I'll watch it then.
But in terms of shows, we should talk about Severance, which just had its season finale on Friday, well Thursday night actually, and then Apple fortuitously right before the final episode.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to find a way to get that. You guys want to talk about? I'm sorry, I didn't watch it, so I can't. I don't have.
We won't go into
not watched it either.
spoilers. We won't go into spoilers. We'll just say that it's arguably one of the finest shows on TV right now.
Wow.
Ben Stiller. It's Ben Stiller's show.
Everyone's cursing him out.
Yeah, and you got a great cast: Adam Scott, John Turturro, Christopher Walken, Patricia Arquette.
Yeah.
A bunch of other people are
Big
in it too,
heavies.
and it's every week was a ratcheting up of tension and then the last few weeks revelations in the last few weeks have been just even bigger.
But in good ways, like it makes sense to the idea of like. What they're doing.
Look, I'll be totally honest with you. Some of it is. There was one twist that I did not expect, and I'm not going to talk about it. But that was kind of like, holy shit.
Really?
And then
there were two that I didn't expect.
There was the one that I didn't expect. I don't want to say it. And then the one about that was revealed in this last episode in terms of who everyone is. You know, just that's it. Who everyone is on the outside. One of those I was not really surprised.
What genre would you put the show in? Science fiction?
It's a little bit of science fiction. It's a little bit of
Science fiction.
It's a
thriller,
little thriller,
mystery,
Twilight Zone-ish type of.
You could say Twilight Zone, but it's
Black Mirror.
Yeah, I'll tell you, and this is not necessarily the best analysis that I have. Is I watched forget second season, forget the third season, but the first season of Westworld, which to me was really good, and then it was sort of you're sitting there. It's a puzzle that you're putting pieces together. And you're starting to and what I enjoyed about Westworld was sort of that you sat and you talked about it with your friends and loved ones about, okay, where is it going to go? And having that week gave you that ability to sit there and kind of think of things. And but this had that, but it also had the frustrating effect of ending on such a cliffhanger every week.
Yeah.
That if you were watching a Netflix show where it binges and it goes right into the next one, you were expecting to see, like watch the next episode in 5 seconds and the countdown and then it would start. You weren't getting that. You have to wait a week and you're like, oh my God. And then again, no spoilers here, but even the last episode of this season is exactly the same thing. You're like, holy shit, wait, I have to wait how long now?
Then it ends.
Did they announce that they're doing a second season though?
They announced it right before it Thursday. They announced it, and there's no way the show is. And again, I hate to be saying this to you now, and then you watch it and you have your expectations are so. I went into it saying like, look, I like Adam Scott. This looks really creepy and interesting, and it's Ben Stiller. There's a whole thing here, and then it just completely draws you in.
Very nice.
I could see that.
It was very unexpected. I wasn't expecting it to kind of grab me the way it did. I
saw the preview and I shared it right away. I was like, this looks really good. And then, of course, me not being very observant, I didn't realize it was on, Apple TV or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then I had an oh crap moment and said, that's one of the two that I don't have.
If you can get Apple TV for a few months and you can watch Ted Lasso and Severance. And trust me, you will be the better for it. I mean, I know everybody talks about For All Mankind, which is another really good show on there as well.
I liked it a lot.
I haven't seen it.
Very surprising.
I haven't seen it, but definitely Ted Lasso and Severance. Those are two, but Severance especially right now. If you really want something of a thriller, like it's really good. There's funny moments, but to me, there's a sense of paranoia. There's a sense of, I think I said it on the last podcast.
That's a good word for it.
Very Kubricky. At times it feels very claustrophobic because they're in this building and it's almost as if you feel like the walls are closing in around them in terms of what's happening, and you also don't know how much is being controlled on the outside as well.
What's
So
their job?
they're basically these. What kind of analysts are they again, George? There's some sort of
It's
data
kind of
analysts.
hard to explain because when you see them actually doing the job, it's
Yeah.
weird. It's like you can't explain it. They're just like debuggers, I guess, because they're pulling numbers to prevent some. It's
Yeah.
I think
It's
at the
not
end of the
really
day, it's
said.
almost like at the end of the
it
day,
actually reminds me of THX 1138.
right? It's very sterile the way everything
Mhm.
looks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very sterile. And then the other thing that I feel like
But
watching
where
it,
they work, when they show the real world, it looks
when they
like
show
a
the real,
normal.
well, here's the thing: it takes place. Well, where it's filmed is it was filmed up in White Plains, New York, in Kingston, which I don't know if anybody who's
Yeah,
familiar
yeah, I
with New
know.
York. It's kind of, especially in the middle of the winter, it's kind of
No,
dreary
it's
and desolate,
absolutely.
and it's cold, and everything is deserted, right?
Mhm.
And then there's like the outside world, and even when you see, I'm not really giving away a spoiler. We're really following a main character, which is
Mhm.
Adam Scott's character, Michael, and his life outside. Because remember, you're seeing an innie and an outie. That's what they call them. So you have his inside life, like his outside
Inside the
personality
job.
knows that
Inside
he's
the job, right?
inside. There's is inside the job and outside the job, and there's sort of a transition that happens when they get to the office, when they go down into the elevator, where the switch happens, where the mindset changes. But you're going to see as
No one forgets their keys, or
no,
You have
but
to go
you're
to
going to.
your locker to get all your stuff.
Right, you have your stuff and you put it on and then you go in. So it's like you have willingly, if on the outside, have willingly made this choice to be severed.
right?
So there's
Well,
a
Your
mystery that
I
personality
want to
the
see it.
same? Is your personality the same?
no. For
Mm.
some people it is. For some people there are certain personalities that are the same. Part of it is part of the beauty of the show is the discovery of who you are
Mhm.
and trying to reconcile some of them trying to reconcile who they were,
You
who
see a
they are.
different, like a work personality and a
Yeah.
outside of work personality,
Hell
which is
yeah.
great.
Oh
Yeah,
hell yeah,
that's
you
cool.
do.
And
You
it's
do.
actually funny because like you were talking about like the location of where they're living.
Mhm.
And if you could imagine it's like in the winter, it's dead, it's like kind of dreary. And it's even worse when they're in the office.
Mm.
Right.
As
And
cold, as lifeless as it is outside, it's like worse in that office.
there's an Orwellian, again, a
Mhm.
Kubrick Orwellian. I even look when you guys just asked me like what do they do? What are they? And I was about to say the first thing that popped into my head was they're laboratory mice.
Right.
They're literally laboratory mice. That's what it feels like to me. It's like they're constantly being watched. They're constantly being controlled.
Mm.
There's corrected, and there's all these things happening, and it's almost like like if somebody does something good, there's a reward,
Are they
and
paid well?
you don't know. And here's the thing: even aesthetically, the way that it's filmed, George, you could probably elaborate on this more. Is even when you look at like Michael's home, when he's there at night, it's not like it's not his house is full of life. It's like
Not
blue
luxury.
and dark, and then everything at the office where you're feeling this oppressiveness is all very harsh white light,
Yeah, white rooms, white
white
everything.
rooms,
It
and
just feels.
it's
Sterile, like you
it's
said.
I cannot
No,
recommend
I
it
definitely want to
enough.
watch it.
And the other one, and I'm going to turn it over to Keith to talk about, right? Unless George, there's anything you want to mention about Severance before
No, I mean, like you said, it's well acted. Again, it's where else are you going to see Turturro and Christopher Walken?
Hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. I like paintings.
It's
You know.
it's really great actors, and again, the revelations are just like more like what the fuck.
Right.
And
It's
then
The
it's
reveal of the story is really.
I just remember, I think I told Vlad a few days ago, like I don't understand, like if they do a season 2, I'm not sure how it's going to work.
and
And then I
now it's
saw this
like
up, like oh shit, now I see.
now you see and there's a lot
Existentialist is maybe the right word. Is
That's a
it
good one.
existential. It is.
what you're making me think about? So I looked it up. I remember reading No Exit and some short stories.
Like the whole thing about hell is other people.
Yeah,
There
and
is a little
John
bit of that, but there's
and
even
Sartre,
more.
and what you were saying kind of made me go look to see what I remembered.
Hmm.
Anyway, it's very interesting. I really want to check it out now. The more you talk about it,
Get
Excellent.
Apple TV.
Hmm.
And I think we're going to touch on Halo because Halo's 3 episodes.
Briefly, I mean, I'm surprised by it. I don't want to like it because I'm like, oh, everything, but it's winning me over overall. I mean, I'm enjoying it, for what it is. It's they do a good job. I mean, like Artie was saying, would I want to watch it? If I'd never watched the Halo series, it's turning to be out to be an okay science fiction show. Is it great? No, but yeah, I don't know. It's all right. It's all right. I'm enjoying it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's dumb and foolish. Um, there's one of the scenes where I think the one character comes onto a ship and things happen that I'm like, all right, I guess, but overall, I mean, they're trying to tell the story. They're using elements of Halo, and like you said, Vlad, I think it's kind of like a post of what happens. And if you look at it like that, it's okay. All right, we'll see where it goes. And I like the actor who plays the Master Chief. He's been fun.
Pablo Schreiber, yeah.
If we have to have the helmet off, he's doing it. He's working it. He seems to be into the role, and the effects are really good. And I have to say, I like how they're showcasing Cortana
a lot, yeah.
And that whole lead up to how that happens.
That's incredible because that's
really,
because that was a big thing. Having her show up, finally kind of be incorporated into the show now, I think brings another level of sort of.
No, it really does, and how it's implemented and how they're discussing how, that Dr. Hazley is going to bring what Cortana is supposed to do. It was juxtaposed with what Master Chief is going through at the same time. And it's funny that Cortana wants to take on her parameter mission, but she's like, whoa, easy there. It's
yeah. And isn't the whole thing that as somebody who's played the games, right, and knows the relationship between Cortana and Master Chief, they're essentially almost inseparable. It's almost like a love story by the time you get to the later installments.
Yeah.
And you're watching this and you're like, wait a second, okay, because I think we said it right. It's sort of like the prequel to what happens in Halo, because ultimately it's like, no spoiler alerts. They're ending up trying to make it to
the
ring world, right?
Yeah.
So once they're at the ring world, then for anybody who's ever played Halo for the first time, that's sort of
where it kind of begins.
That's where it kind of begins. So it's interesting that they've gone this far back.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they've done a pretty good job also with the Covenant. The Covenant seemed pretty cool. You know, they seem. I mean, but it does feel. It feels like a Paramount Plus show, a little bit. I mean, some of the special effects are a little.
Yeah, I mean, there's good moments and bad moments. I mean,
it's on Amazon, right?
No, it's
on
a Paramount Plus.
Oh, it's where all the Star Trek shows are.
It's funny because you'll see sections where the effects are really well done, and then you'll see spots where you're like, "Whoa, that's like obviously bad." And you're like, "Okay," and then someone actually did a great thing online where they took out all the sound effects from the show and inserted the sound effects from the game,
and it works, right?
Oh, it's so good. It's like then it would have been so much better, and you're like, well, yeah.
They did have fan
Why
service.
did they use the sounds from the game?
That's weird to me. Like
that's exactly
they get right.
Right, yeah. But they do use some of the sounds in the game.
Some of it.
You hear the ooh.
The shields. The shields they got right. They did great.
Yeah, and they'll give you an FP, like a first person perspective.
That was goofy, but it was kind of cute that they were like, all right.
But they really they only gave you that fan service in the first episode.
Yeah.
In the next two episodes, there's been not unfortunately, but depending on your tolerance level, there's been more sort of character development.
Yeah, and I like to say the other thing. It's very basic. It's almost like you can see it coming from a mile away. Half the stuff that they're doing. You're not like it's no Severance or any other you're not going to be like it's comic book. Video game
it's broad strokes type of things. Obviously there's like two polar opposites that are going to sort of be the keys to something,
right? Exactly.
And there's that, and then there's obviously that there's who trusts who even within within it's not the Federation. What's the name of the U?
The name and
whatever the Earth, whatever the humans are, right?
Yeah,
I forget that. It's almost like there's this whole. It's Look, it's
You
second
guys are not
guessing.
doing a good job selling it. I have to be honest with
No,
you.
I mean, I'm not trying to either, but it's fun.
I'm
It's
like-
fun enough that I'm like, all right, I'm gonna watch. I'll watch it because I have it. It's on the thing. The weekly thing will come up, and I'll be like, all right,
Yeah, it's my Thursday shows. It's
Yeah.
I'll do that and I'll do
There's
Star
no
Trek.
excitement, but you could tell that they loved the game.
right. I think that's what it is.
Well, I'll take you one step.
Does it feel like a
further. I don't
fan
feel
film
that
or
the
something?
showrunners. I don't think that the showrunners necessarily love the game. Now,
No.
here's the thing.
That'll
This
do
has
it.
been in. This has been in. I'm not trying to be critical of them, but this has been in production for how many years? It's been quite a long time, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Halo
I mean,
came
it's
out
been through how many different possible directors,
like
right?
2001, right? This was
But wasn't
2000.
Peter Jackson supposed to be doing it? Then
Neil Blomkamp. Neil Blomkamp or whatever his name is.
I'm sorry, thank you.
Blomkamp.
So I know we've talked about this a number of times, but maybe we need to do a whole show on it. But this is my biggest pet peeve with genre, movies, comics,
Mhm.
shows, is these long-standing franchises or serialized characters and stuff like that, universes. When you get to a point where the people doing it are no longer connected to the source material, or maybe a bastardized version of it somewhere down the line.
But
So that's something we got to talk about someday.
But that's the argument that some people are making about the newer Treks, right? You don't no longer have there's no Roddenberry involved, there's no Berman involved anymore. There's people who've taken over, and some of the writers that are taking over now that are writing these shows weren't even born when the original Star Trek came out, for example. There's all these arguments, and as much I don't want to go down this road, but that's the same thing you can argue.
That's just another day we can have that conversation, but that's a subject that we probably need to dig into.
Show our age though, but that's the thing. It's
Marvel DC Comics.
Right, because you're saying is like young kids can't enjoy what was
came
written.
out. I don't think you need to be born when Star Trek first came out to enjoy it. I just think that if you don't have a love of that genre or that show, and you're attempting to translate it to a movie or something, it shows. Zack Snyder,
J.J. Abrams.
You could tell the only book he's read is Dark Knight Returns.
Right, and that's
Or
sort
maybe
of
he somebody read the audiobook.
Well, it's not even that. It's I think to your point, Artie, and we're going down this rabbit hole for a second, but Batman, right? For most of us, Batman was Adam West. For our age group, was Adam West up until
Michael Keaton.
Well, Michael Keaton, but that Michael Keaton became what it did because of Miller, right? Miller was the first real, even though Neil Adams was doing it in the 70s, right? It was really, it really became the zeitgeist with Year One and Dark Knight Returns that the darkest version of Batman was able to kind of become this thing that ended up becoming. I mean, there was at one point, if you guys don't remember, but like Bill Murray was in contention to be Batman.
That's hilarious.
Okay, think about that for a second. And again, that iterative thing that we're talking about, which is like, it's, everybody has a definitive run, right? I mean, the X-Men had a definitive run. Claremont, right? Claremont's X-Men were the definitive run for the longest time, right? So everybody kind of gleans from
Although
there.
I love the Kirby Stan Lee stuff. I mean, you think about when they first came out. I mean, I read that like over and over again. That was like, to me, that was the Iceman, the core group was like, I still think about like the white cover with the characters in their black and gold costume, and just that was like, that was.
But it's all time. I mean, again, it's like,
that's the thing that's interesting though, because like for you it was the Kirby stuff. For me, it was the Neil Adams X-Men stuff. That was like the first time.
Paul Smith too. I was a big
Smith. Well, Paul
but
Smith.
But I mean, it was like the way you get introduced to the character. It doesn't matter, like whatever, as long as you kind of.
But yeah, it got you in.
Right.
It gets you in, and it sort of becomes this thing. Like I remember the first X-Men comic that I bought was 159. It was Bill Sienkiewicz's The One Shot, which was
nice.
Dracula.
But I think you're all making my kind of point. Is that continuous X-Men book, meaning from issue number 1 to the end of Jim Lee's run and then the launch of the Blue and Gold, you had a continuous X-Men saga.
Yeah.
And that is really the definitive X-Men. I know what you're saying, Vlad. We really know that the modern X-Men really started with Claremont and the new team with Giant Size number 1.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
I'm with you with there.
Absolutely.
With you with that. But once you get to that blue and gold era, and then I'm sorry, like I said, we'll do it another episode. I don't want us to be 5 hours because we could go forever on this.
Absolutely.
And I really want to talk Metal Gods. Is that once you get the modern era, like I don't call it modern because now we're way beyond this with 20 plus years from it. But once you get to that blue and gold, X-Force, Will Portatio has his own book. This version of the X-Men, you now have every 5 years a new X-Men book starting at number 1.
Right.
And that's completely different. And then now you get to the 2000s, 2005. Has anybody who's writing the books now came up reading those Kirby issues?
No,
Right.
they haven't.
Those
And that's
early,
the thing.
those Neil Adams issues.
But
they don't even know
that's
those Neil Adams costumes.
Right. It's like think
Right.
about the JLA. Think about the JLA. Like, does everybody remember Marv Wolfman and George Perez doing
of
all this
course.
stuff? They don't remember all that stuff
Oh,
anymore.
yeah.
Very
That's a
few
shame.
people do. I mean, I think it's the state of comics too, and I think it's the same thing with movies. It's the same thing with all
Yeah,
these
that's
things.
where I
You've
was
had all these
going. It's like,
Well, you can
Yeah.
even argue. I mean, I don't want to say about Star Wars, but I mean, I think we're at a point now where there's a generation of people that are not everybody, but there's people that are validating the prequels for whatever reason, right? And they feel that the prequel
They were 7 when they saw it.
they 7 when they saw them because a lot of people saw the special editions in the movie theaters. That was their first experience of seeing Star Wars that led into the prequels, that
Yep.
ultimately led into Clone Wars, where Filoni, has become what he's become because of what he did with the Clone Wars. And now there's that payoff. There's that I don't want to use it, nostalgia is the bad word, but you're able to kind of tap into the goodwill of all that stuff that people grew up with that was in their formative years. And now they're able to use it and capitalize it on Ahsoka,
But is it goodwill though, or is it a reverence for the original source material that allows them to kind of build off of that right into it and kind of add to it, as opposed to bastardizing
But it's almost like
it?
6 degrees of separation, right? Not that it isn't the original source material, because the original source material is the first 3, right?
Because you could go back to like what Artie said about Moon Knight, and how there was different versions, and I think like Bendis wrote something and he had 6 or 5 or 6 different personalities.
Right.
What the show did is kind of boil it down to its essence and take a little bit of everything, but kind of capture the essence of what the character is.
But that's good writing. That's what we're getting at. It's good writing. It's finding the essence of the character. Right.
Whereas something like Halo, it doesn't feel like.
Well, it's hollow. Halo is
Hollow.
hollow, right? It's
Right.
like
It's
you're taking sort of the
tropes of the game.
The tropes of the game, and you're making this thing when it really like the best example that I could give is even like something like Resident Evil. I'm not comparing it, but like the Resident Evil movies, not the new one, but the old ones, took the basic premise and kind of went off on this own thing and started using, okay, let's throw in a dog, let's throw in a zombie, and it's Resident Evil. It's like there's no real connection to the source material, and that's the sort of the problem that I feel that. As long as if it looks like it, then it is. It's not.
I'm going to bring this right on track, which goes to the point of why Metal Lords is so fucking awesome.
All right, yeah, we got to talk about Metal Lords because Metal Lords loves metal. The people who made Metal Lords, D.B. Weiss, Tom Morello's wife, who was the producer, the music producer on there.
Yes.
First of all, it's on Netflix. It debuted yesterday. It's a coming of age teen movie that I'm going to let everybody say their bit, but I got to tell you, I've seen it twice. It's by myself, and I've seen it with my family. And as a tried and true metalhead since I was since I was 10. This was probably one of the closest movies about adolescent love for metal, not just classic metal, but we're going all the way up until current metal. So which is really interesting because you have like young teenage kids now who are into certain metal that some of us have been in for many years.
Yep.
And but the source material, the reverence, the references, the cameos. And I'm not going to give anything away from that, but but it's not even about that. It's about the 3 main characters and about what it means. Like some of our viewers may have been in a band, may have done Battle of the Bands in high school. So I think you'll relate to what it's like to discover the music for the first time, and what it means to you and how it speaks to you. And the soundtrack is fucking killer. But I've said enough right now. I'll say more in a little bit. I'm gonna let the other guys talk about it because I know all of us have seen it. So I want to sort of pass the metal buck over to somebody else who wants to talk
I
about it.
mean, for me, it kind of captured like that awkward age too, where you're kind of not sure. And honestly, for me, like that kid with the glasses was amazing because in junior high, high school, the shaggy hair, the glasses, not fitting in. And, my introduction to metal was Black Sabbath. It wasn't War Pigs, but it was Iron Man. So,
Okay.
because again, comic book, and all three leads were fantastic. I mean, I thought all the characters were really well done. The one thing I thought was refreshing was the fact that the competing band, they weren't assholes.
I love that.
I loved
that.
it.
That was like
nice fucking people in the
Nice
world.
people.
Nice guys, and it was just like it took the trope of the competing band,
And it wasn't even about that.
Where
It
they
was
were just
right.
like,
It
"Hey
was the
man,
jock who was the asshole.
cool,
It was
whatever."
It was the jock who was the asshole. I like the whole. I like that there's a generational thing about metal. Sort of like that there's the respect for it, and then.
And that's what I thought, Vlad, talk about that for a second, because that to me was the interesting part. So remember, I was away from metal for a very long time.
Right.
And got back to it. And I went right back to the stuff only that I listened to.
Right. And yeah, I can tell you, sorry, I'm going to diverge here for a little bit, but this happened a while ago where I started doing a podcast with a friend of mine a few years back, and we were going through and talking about metal through the decades, and obviously I realized pretty early on that my love for metal kind of ended in the early 90s, in terms of what was current. So sometime in the late aughts, like 2009, 2010, I started actually delving back into everything I missed over the last 10 years, 15 years, let's say, right? And I discovered a lot of metal that, obviously the classic stuff that everybody knows, which is like Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, early Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, Slayer, all Black Sabbath with Ronnie James Dio, all that classic stuff, which is for people of a certain age, their DNA in metal, which is that's fine. But there's been a lot of derivative music that's come out since then. There was more, thrash obviously was probably where you started coming out of it, Artie, and then there was after that there was death, there was black metal, there was post-death, there was progressive death, all these other types of metal that I'm not even going to do a good job of sort of discussing.
Metal.
Right. But I do metal, for example, which is all these are offshoots of, Sabbath, influenced by other bands. Like the point of what you're saying about the iterations of who influences who, because you have bands that were influenced, like Metallica was influenced by Sabbath, and then you have all these bands that are now influenced by Metallica that indirectly were influenced by Sabbath, right? And then there's a cyclical thing later on where you have bands like The Sword that have come out in the middle of the aughts,
The Sword,
who are a throwback to even proto Doom and early Sabbath stuff, right?
Yeah.
So you're getting all that sort of cyclical stuff, but there's a lot of bands, like there's that whole scene in the movie when he goes Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Metallica, like Anthrax, Slayer, and then he starts that but then I know you were like, wait, what? Mastodon, Opeth, Lamb of God, and like all these other bands, and you're like, and I'm watching it going, oh my God, I know these bands, I love these bands. So it was so that to me, it's like look, there's no way to say it. It speaks to me, so it's like one of those things where you realize that it's rediscovering something that you loved. It's like, remember we went through our, Stranger Things brought us back to D&D, it's because look, there's no way to say it. Maybe I'm admitting something I shouldn't, but it's like a lot of these things, especially something like that, harkens back. It's a sense of nostalgia back to a time of innocence about stuff that you discovered and loved. And you realize that it's something that you still love so deep down and who made you who you are. It solidified friendships that you've had for decades because of it. And there's something about it. And the other thing that you really I love that they tied D&D to this as well, because it's a sort of, again, it's like, what do they say towards the end of the movie? Fads come and go, but we're permanent. It's your love for this thing defines who
Well, no,
you
but
are.
they also showed the intimacy of experiencing the music together.
Well, the
too.
scene with the solo, and that's the whole thing. It's that transgressive feeling of like that character. That's what he lived for. You know, that's the thing. When you look at Hunter as a character, it was like he's not a bad kid. He's a smart kid. He's really dedicated to the music. He's a good musician. He's obsessed. He's an asshole, a little bit of an asshole.
Well, he's an asshole because of his life experiences. He's not sure how to handle it. So his best
They
thing
show that in the movie too, which is great. That's kind of why I like the movie. It's like to me when I watched it, I didn't like I had no expectations. I was excited because of metal. Like again, the last 2 years I'm kind of delving into metal again.
Right.
Again, the old stuff, really the stuff that I loved.
Right.
Right. And I'm watching this and going, I know some of this. I feel some of this. I remember being a kid and not necessarily being awkward per se, but not being mainstream, like loving this kind of music, you know, listening to it with my friends, sharing it with my friends, us being in the car in the back, headbanging.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Yeah, I mean, all that stuff, going to concerts, all of these things, and realizing what it means. It's like it's your badge of honor, and then that whole thing of you know, Hunter's sort of progression through the thing about, you know, like you know, when you say I'm not into that shit, because back when I was into metal, it's like there's no other fucking music. I would not listen to Depeche Mode. I'm not going to listen to The Cure. I'm not going to listen to the Police. Fuck that shit. If there's
if there's White Stripes,
well, I'm not. Yeah, well,
that was
that
great.
whole thing. But then great. Sort of the understanding
Rock of Ages.
It's not about that. It's about respecting the types, growing up and respecting it. It's not just that badge that you wear because you're an outcast, but it's the love of the music. And I think and again, I think the scene for me that really did it was sort of watching Kevin learn War Pigs on the drums. Again, nobody that I know had a friend who spent $13,000 on a drum kit.
Right.
And like my favorite scene is like he's got this drum kit that's taking up his entire bedroom. He starts playing, his mother walks in and she doesn't even care that he's got this fucking drum kit. You know?
No, but I thought it was a really touching scene. I forgot the name of the girl character. She's keep coming to the door.
Yeah, man.
When she comes in and she starts playing with him. That's what I mean about the intimacy of experience
and the connection. Connection. It's the connection.
Something, and you get that in heavy metal, in music, right? I'm sure, but you also get that in fandom, in things you love, and sharing it with somebody.
Right, absolutely, and it's sort
of
that's
a memory nobody could take away from.
There's nobody can take away. It's like, you know, Tom Morello did an interview recently. George, you probably saw this one where he's talking about, look, I grew up in a town where, you know, if I went to the mall, you know, and I was wearing a Maiden shirt and somebody else was wearing a Maiden shirt, like, what happened to you, Artie? Awesome shirt. There's an instant brotherhood or a connection that somebody realizes. Look, I can't tell you the number of times I've been, again, I'm dating myself here, that, you know, you talk to somebody and you start sparking up a conversation with somebody about a shirt you're wearing, and that leads to the love of your band and the love of music. And I think
let me tell you a funny story, Vlad. Remember, you sent me those shirts. Remember, I'm getting back into metal. I'm loving it. I'm looking for shirts. I'm doing this. And remember, the last concert I probably went to was in 1989, right? Probably, or 87 or 86.
Probably Iron Maiden.
Right, back then, right? So I'm wearing one of the shirts you bought me to the gym. You got me to the gym, and I'm working out on it. And a guy my age, maybe a little older than me, said, "I went to that concert. I was there." Right. And he's like, "Yeah, man, were you there?" And I'm like, it's like, but what you're saying is that what I've noticed about metal or rock is that there really is that. You'll go see cover bands. You'll go see.
Yeah. It depends on who you love and what you do. It's like, think about George, and again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, George, but it's like how much you love being able to go into a store and discover new music and do all of these things and find new albums and do all of this other stuff that you're doing, right? And it's like, it's your love of music. This is what brought me back, you know, that whole exercise that I did about 10 years ago, going to rediscover all these bands. And it's not only metal. There was other music that I went back and I rediscovered separately. Like Radiohead is a band that I never listened to in the 90s and the early 2000s, and now they're one of my favorite bands. But it was like having the ability, and this is where I'm envious of you, Artie, where right now, like, you know, George and I are kind of spitballing, telling you, listen to Tool, listen to Opeth, listen to Mastodon. It's like you get to take their entire discography at your fingertips, like Ghost, for example.
Yep.
And you can just dig into it any way you
discover it.
want
You can
and
binge
discover it.
listen.
It's like the same
Yes.
thing, like you're like saying, look, you didn't read the Sienkiewicz run of Moon Knight, like
Right.
from 1981. Read the whole thing, and it's like all of a sudden you don't have to wait months for each episode, for each comic to come out. You can actually sit there and just immerse yourself in an album. And it's like, realize you're listening to this album, then you go to that one, you go, wait, I'm not sure which one I like more. And then you go through there, and there's no bias in terms of how things were released. Like if you listen to Metallica, and like you know nothing about Metallica, and you listen to Metallica, and everybody obviously knows that the first 4 albums are like the be all and end all, but there's a lot of great stuff. People may not agree, but there's a lot. The Black Album is arguably one of the biggest albums of all time, and there's plenty of stuff on Load and Reload and later on, even now, that is great stuff. And if you listen to it just like that, it always comes back to what we just said about the comics. When did, like, I'm sorry, we're coming full circle with the comics, but it's like Keith talking about Neil Adams, coming into the X-Men at Neil Adams. It's like, that's the album that was the first album that you got into. It's like, I got into Metallica with Master of Puppets. Somebody else got into it with the Black Album or Injustice for All or Kill 'Em All from the beginning.
Yeah.
Other people got into them much later. And it doesn't matter. It's where you get in, then you appreciate it. And then you try to appreciate everything. And everybody's going to have a different area of that. But
And it's fun though, because each point of interest or each point of entry is, like that's your first love of that band.
Right. That's true. It's absolutely true.
And no one could take that away from you. That album is going to be what you associate the band with. Whatever came before it or after it, your point of entry, this is like it for you.
Now think about it. We saw Judas Priest in 1984 on the Defenders of the Faith tour. Defenders of the Faith, I saw them twice on that tour. Defenders of the Faith is my favorite album from Judas Priest, hands down. Are there better albums? Probably. You could argue Screaming for Vengeance, British Steel, whatever. But that's my moment. That's your defining moment. Where did you see it? How did you see them? What was the thing?
And it goes back to like music and memory, because how often can you listen to a song and you can remember where you were when you first heard it,
right?
Or or
experiences. Like I know for
Power
me,
of music.
Def Leppard, Saturday Night High and Dry. It just takes me back to going to the beach with Vlad in the back of my mom's car.
Right.
And just listening to it on tape.
Victim of Changes by Judas Priest, back of your mom's car.
50.
Back of your mom's car going out to Greenport over
right
Starfield Night. Yeah, I mean, it's
exactly.
amazing.
Exactly.
And it's like,
and that's what the show did for me. So this is really, like, to talk about the show again, it's really a gem. Because it's not, if you're into adult content and expecting like a metal, the entire thing, it's not necessarily that. Like Vlad said, it's a coming of age story. It's about friends, and it has the love of metal as the connecting tissue throughout it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really well done. It's nice. You can share it with people. It's got great music throughout it. It's got fun stuff that happens along the way. It has stuff like, from 80s kids movies like we liked, teen movies that we liked. It's got, the D&D aspect. So if you're like in that group, in that culture, in that fandom, you're getting some of that. You're getting a friendship that you're watching, a love, a first love. You're getting cool cameos, like you said.
Cool cameos, but you're getting more, you're getting some moral, there's some moral choices that are made. There's obviously, there's a little bit of fantasy in the sense of, what it's like to sort of perform at a to perform at a battle of the bands. I mean, I can speak from a personal experience of what it's like to do that, which is sort of like, that's your be all and end all moment, right? For the mind of a 15 or 16-year-old, you're like, this is the most important thing that I'm going to do, right?
Right.
It's like, and in your mind, in the midst of time, you go back and you think, oh, we were great. And then if you objectively remember, you suck balls. But it's not even that. It's daring to dream. It reminded me a lot of sort of, in many ways, a little bit of School of Rock. Parts of it reminded me of School of Rock, sort of with the love of music. What it means to love something that much and to sort of put it into it. And then having these three kids in different stages of loving something.
Yeah.
Obviously, Hunter loved it so much it became, it was his balm for his family blowing up, right? And whatever it was. Kevin, obviously, it was alluded to that he sort of had, his mother and father, was a very distant relationship. And then him sort of being introduced in this. It's like sort of having that, like, hey, Artie, I'm going to bring you in on this. I'm going to teach you this here. Now listen to this, or listen to this, or listen. And that's how he's schooled. And then it goes through and it becomes part of his life. And then you have, I forgot the girl's name, Kathleen? Emily. Sweet, sweet character.
I liked her character a lot.
And obviously, the whole thing about tying into the love affair. I mean, the relationship with Kevin, and what it does, and how she brings it into it, like the classical influence. And I love that. I just loved everything to do with the courtship, the friendship, what it means. Like
no, and they did work. And you know what? Now that you mention it, they did have a level of complexity with the characters then.
Absolutely.
Because like you said, Emily had the issue where she was on meds.
She was on meds.
She had
real issues. Meds, right? They all have issues, right? Yeah, they all have issues.
You're right. The middle kid, the drummer, his family, he didn't really have they were working too much. They didn't give him any time. He had to take care of his brother,
Right. There was and the other thing that you seem to realize is it's not the typical thing that you've seen in other movies where you have all these poor kids. These kids were actually well off. Hunter was what? Did you see his room? He fucking had everything.
Kevin, he lived in an apartment or something.
Yeah. No, Kevin was middle class.
Kevin was middle class, but Hunter was fucking. He had a Mustang.
Father was a plastic surgeon. He had the wealthiest doctor.
I liked his dad too.
His dad was hilarious. Great. I thought it was, and really good cameos and a lot of, again.
And actually played off and it played against the tropes of these kind of teen movies.
Yep.
Like when Kevin's in the hot tub with that girl.
That was funny.
Was it like you kind of thought, oh, it's going to be the thing where he does something stupid and then they break up and they don't, and he doesn't. He's just like, No, like,
he's an honorable kid. And
Metal Gods will never let that happen.
But at the same time, I'm like, come on, all the middle guys in a hot tub with a girl. Come on, really?
But do you remember what he says at the end?
Oh yeah, no.
Spoilers. But remember what he says? He goes, a year ago, I had no idea who these people were. And now, they're sort of his consciousness and stuff, which I thought was really well done. And the other thing I loved was, again, I can't gush enough about it. It's sort of, if you know the stuff and you know these bands. And when Emily is being she's looking up the bands as there's that montage where she's starting to learn the bands. Come on, guys. I'm sorry for somebody, regardless if it's metal or not, or it's something that you really hold near dear to your heart and you watch them sort of honor it in such a way. It actually makes you feel I'm sorry. I'm going to sound really corny, but you do feel it. You feel like these people get what I love. And
it's a love letter to metal.
It's a love letter to metal. There's no other way. To all viewers, there's a moment in the movie, there's obviously what the songs are in the movie, and there's a scene where Hunter gives Kevin a list of songs. And some of those have been played in the movie, and then there's other ones that never even are kind of played or they're alluded to. I had to screenshot that to write down all those songs so I can create my own specific playlist, which I shared with the guys. But it's just, to me, it's is it a perfect movie? No. It's but it speaks to people in this particular way. And I think it's
a very personal kind of, small, it did what it set out to do. It had its one little story that it wanted to tell. Again, like Corey said, it's like a little gem of a film.
Gem is the right word. Keith, let's get a little bit. What do you have to say about it?
Well, first I have to say, who's the actor who played Hunter? Is he related to Michael Cera? Because because
actually, I looked up his name. His name is Adam. I forgot his last name. I'm sorry. This is actually his debut.
Yeah. I think he learned from Michael Cera because I totally got Scott Pilgrim vibes off of him, and he just captured that feel. He did great. His character was a lot of fun. He cracked me up because to me he's almost reminded me a little bit of Artie. He doesn't drink, smoke, do anything, but he's so passionate about his one thing, and that, it consumes him so much that he becomes an asshole about everything.
Right.
Not outside of that. No offense, but but at the same time, it makes him so lovable that you know that you can't help but be infected by his excitement about it, and that's what, you know, you have Kevin, who's, you know, this kind of nebbish, like, I don't know what I'm doing, but he's obviously talented. He's a great kid, and he's excited about it, and he gets into it. So they really bounce off each other really well, and I love the introduction of Emily, and like how she's this, you know, maybe it's a little like, oh, it's the girl with, you know, with the mental health issue and the medication, but you know, that ingratiated into the whole aspect of what that became. To me, it was more than just about the metal, in that regard. The metal obviously was the core of it. That's what brought them all together, the music, the ideas. But there was a lot, and then again, like we were saying, their competition, the other band, and the other bands, they played them off really fun. You can't help but like the kids that were
too,
part
right?
of the
They were
band. The
supportive
drummer
kids.
was hilarious. The guy was wasted.
Yeah.
You know, so there was just a lot of good layers to everything about it. It wasn't taking itself overly serious, but at the same time was serious about a lot of things. It had
Right.
touched upon a lot of great stuff, you know, mental health, obviously,
Friendship.
music, friendship, you know, first love, you know, first, you know, they handled it very nicely. I mean, you know, again, I have nothing but good things to say about it. It was a lot of fun. Again, was it the best? Whatever. But
It's not about that. It's the feeling, right?
It's exactly
feeling.
it. Exactly it. So yeah,
It was, there was something else that it was, it touched upon sort of, you had the feeling that Hunter, you know, they kind of alluded to that Hunter and Kevin were friends since the third grade, right? And obviously
he helped them
there's
out.
this
He
whole
saved
thing
them from
about
something.
what they have to go through in order to be together. And there's that, again, it's focusing on the friendship of, regardless, we're making this band, regardless if we suck or not. And obviously there's talent there. There's, there's especially on Hunter's side, and then Kevin having to realize that in the whole thing. Yes, is there a wish fulfillment fantasy at the end of that? Yes.
No,
but even the
definitely
last
had
scene,
cartoonish elements to it, right? Like they go to the mental institute or whatever that was. And
right. But you know what? It's you
Joe
know,
Maggs,
it's fine.
You know,
it's all about, it's talking about the friendship. And you know what? Even the thing at the end, for somebody who's been in a band and knows, like, sort of sitting there when you have like the three different people, or how many, you know, sort of kind of propping each other up. You're all different, but you're propping each other up, and what you collectively were able to do. It's this sense of when, you know, when you unify and you do something together as a whole, and then you make something out of it, you know, it's, I mean, that's the beauty that I found out of it. Like when you're able to make music with other people and it gels and it becomes something, and it's something that you're not, I'm not talking about stuff that you had to do in school, like chorus or, I'm talking about like, I'm in a band, I'm going to do this. Regardless if it sounds good or not, you're in a band with somebody and you're doing something that you love and you're creating something the same way that all of you create artwork, you know, and do all this stuff. I think it's amazing.
But one thing I agree with Keith very strongly on this piece. The beautiful piece that I got out of it was the friendship angle.
Yep, absolutely.
He does not let his friendship go. He's hurt by it. They have an argument. He's got to fucking walk away and not talk to him. But then he tries calling him and he can't get through to him.
Then he's worried.
And he fucking goes and finds him.
Well, it's the honor of what going to get him, and not only that, bringing back the other drummer to help him. You know, like he does right by everybody.
Yeah.
And even the scene when he's talking to Emily, like, well, Emily's like, I'm not going with you to get him, and he goes, I understand, please, you know, and he didn't want to make it about her. It's like, I got to do this for him. Yeah. And I think it's great. I think it was.
I really, like I said, it's a gem of a movie. I would tell anybody to watch it. I'd say, particularly if you're into this genre, if you were into this stuff when you were younger, if you were, because you know what I find? A lot of people who, again, I'm going to go back to comics, Dungeons and Dragons, metal. A lot of that overlaps.
Oh, hell yeah. Absolutely.
The stuff of the cast back then.
That's why I love Joe Maggs so much. He's like our freaking avatar out in the fucking real world. Except he's better looking than fucking all of us. And look who his fucking wife is. You know, that's, I can't believe I sent him money for death saves and he gets to have everything anyway. But he makes just fucking cool shirts. But anyway, I just, it all overlaps. And I really like that about the movie. So you're in, if you're of a certain age, I think especially, you're really going to love this movie. And right on time.
The one thing, and I'm sorry, this is kind of a obvious segue. There was really no video games, were there? You
Pinball
figure what
machine.
if they had the triumvirate
they
of
had
showing
the
video games?
pinball
Well, no,
machine.
the
Pinball
kid does
machine.
say, the kid does say, I thought of you, the kid that he insults the potential bass player at D&D, and he says, well, this is Call of Duty's better than this.
Yeah,
Yeah, you say that.
That's hilarious.
That's
And then
but
he's like, I could have been in that band.
I could have been in that band. Look, look, is it a like is it a classic? No, but
It's
it
a
is a
goof.
gem of a movie
yeah.
that hits close to home. And
I don't think their intention was to make a classic. I think their
No.
intention was to write this like kind of very personal story to them.
Yeah.
And they did it.
They're successful.
and they did metal right. They did metal right.
Yeah,
That's all I
which
got to
is
say.
why they got the people they did. And that's why they did the cameos they did. That's why they made
the
made a
cameos.
point. The
This is
point
not
was
a
that
spoiler-free review, is it?
It's not a spoiler-free review. We
But
just talked.
I mean, talk about the cameos were great because it was like, the different types of the preeminent metal bands for each particular type of genre, essentially, when you think about it, right?
Pretty much. I mean, you had
Anthrax.
You had Anthrax. You had Scott Ian from Anthrax. You had Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine, Audio Slave. You had Kirk Hammett from Metallica, which was surprising to me, and you had the metal god himself, Rob Halford.
I love that. I love
that it's Rob who basically mentions it's all about love for Rob. You know.
What I love about Rob is that's him. Like if you see him or follow him in social media, that's
a sweetheart.
Him.
He's a
that's
sweetheart.
what he wears all the time. If
but
he's
he's
not
a
wearing
sweetheart.
A cat
He's a
sweetheart.
He's a sweetheart of a man. That's the thing. And I don't mean it in any derogatory way. He's a good, kind soul. Loves this type of stuff. He believes in it, and and that's all I'm saying. We could talk about it.
We loved it. I mean,
before we jump, we should touch on Elden Ring real quick.
What?
Elden Ring.
I know he doesn't want to hear it, but
No, I want to hear it. Unfortunately, I'm not.
I know it's not good.
It's very hard for me to get into new shows, and it's impossible for me to get into new games.
Yeah, this one I think would be hard.
Enjoying it.
Yeah,
you would destroy your TV if you tried to play.
Yeah,
I think I would love to see him just stream 2 hours of him playing that game.
I want him to come out to the first checkpoint, and I want him to go and I want us to tell him, hey Artie, go attack the tree sentinel.
He wouldn't have to. I mean, after that first.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
The first time you'd be like, all right, I'm done with this game.
I'm done. What the fuck is this? Done.
But I heard it's not as hard as like the.
No, it's not. It's easy compared to like a lot of the Dark Souls stuff. To me, it reminded me of Demon Souls, the first one, where it was tough enough if you've never played something like this, it's still tough. And even if you played, it's still tough. But eventually you get into it where it's just like, okay, it's more of a power fantasy in that regard.
When I look at the game, I'll let you guys get into it. Just answer this for me. Is it the mechanics in the boss fights are hard, or judging the distance in the combat?
Both.
Okay.
Look, I think it's not a button mashing game. I think you have to know combinations. Look, there are cheeses. There's stuff you can do out there. I think to Keith's point about it being easier is the fact that unlike the previous Souls games, you hit a point, you have to get past this boss, or you're not progressing in the game. This is such an open world game that you can theoretically go off and overpower yourself, learn more things, because the way it's building, it builds like it's feeding you like mini bosses and different types of battles, so that when you do get to the main bosses, that you've learned something. You've learned
or you can go at them like you never even have to level. You can go in if you're good. You can probably.
People are speedrunning this game and getting it done in a half an hour or less.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
I think somebody beat the tree sentinel first level with a wretch. So
yeah.
The wrench.
Yeah, the wretch is a class that you have. You're naked with a piece of wood.
Is that the whole point? Is the whole point of the wretch so that they start you off with base stats so you can do
you got you're 10 and everything. So it's like you can pretty much do whatever you want. I started with a wretch, but then I switched over to a prophet, and then I did the astrologer.
What about you, George?
So I have a bandit and I have an astrologer.
Yeah,
But the thing, I think the whole point was like Keith and I had discussed it, and I think recently a third one just went off on it now, right, Vlad?
What do you, a third one? Well,
Well, we remember we talked about Ghost, and then Artie, like we talked about Artie discovering Ghost.
yeah, and I discovered Elden Ring, and it's
Now this is you. We want you to talk about your discovery of Elden.
My discovery of Elden Ring has been sort of thanks to the guys. I mean, I'm starting to play it, but I've gotten stuck in this level of sort of if anybody who's played WoW knows, you can have multiple characters, and you can have and you don't know exactly what you want to build, and there's ways to actually power level your characters pretty quickly. So it's like I have like 4 different characters right now at like levels anywhere between 27 and 40. And it's like I'm trying to decide who I really want to play, because you want to try all these different things, because it's a way of actually, learning it. And like for me right now, and you guys are much further in the game than I am, I still haven't beaten Magritte yet, because I'm still traveling all around the place to try to find all these different things and find dungeons, and I'm off on all different shit. I'm trying to memorize key locations, so I have a process to what I need to do to get what I need for each of my characters. Because I think I want to make a wretch, I want to make an astrologer. I have a confessor, which is essentially a cleric that I'm ready to build up.
Confessor's a good one too. Yeah.
I put in 27 hours on my first character, and then I recreated him again yesterday, and in 2 hours I'm like 10 levels higher than him.
Yeah.
That I put in the 24 hours, because you're learning a process and how to do it, and then you want to go back. My goal is to get overpowered so I can go back and beat up the bosses. And then I think there was an article that you sent us, George, which is like once you finish the game and you go in a new game plus, that's supposed to be like you're destroying things left and right that were beating you up, because you're so you retain everything, and then you're able to go through and kind of just beat them up. But the reality of it is, you guys tell me the truth. If you're not careful enough, you can. It doesn't matter how powerful you can get killed by a goat.
I'm level 100. I'm a level 100, 111. Right now I'm a level 111, and I'd still get wrecked by certain things. And I'm like, how? What? Why?
There are these goblins. They're not goblins. Are they stone goblins? What the fuck are they that do
the
blood
imps,
damage?
the stone imps.
The stone imps in the fucking in these
The
fucking
dungeons.
catacombs that are, first of all, you don't see them. They're up on the ceiling. They drop down. And they fuck you up. And next thing you know, you're bleeding. You're bleeding. Artie, no shit. I mean, I've been chased by fucking goats. I've been chased by giants. I've been chased by the bears. Dude,
bears.
You don't even realize that a bear is onto you. Next thing you know, like your screen goes red because you got hit from a bear from behind, and it's like a big ass bear. You turn around, you're like, oh shit, and you're just like trying to book.
But you're enjoying it.
It's beautifully done. It's arguably one of the best games. It's definitely the game of the year. There's no question about it. I'm going to have a hard time believing something's going to beat Elden Ring, because it's so much. There's so much. It reminds me of Skyrim in many ways in terms of how open it is, but it also is. But it also is obviously a Souls game. It's there's a brutality there to it. There's all these things. But the thing about it, as beautiful as it looks, and it's dangerous. Everything around you is dangerous. Everything of fucking around you is dangerous.
And
I mean, today I started a game. I started at a checkpoint. What is it? Oh my God.
A grace,
right? I started at a grace, and I'm in the middle of the woods, and I look down, and there's a fucking boar, a wild boar, attacking me, just attacking me. I'm like, what the fuck are you attacking me for? And it's like, if you're not paying attention, he's gonna kill you. If you stepped away for a second to go make your frappe or whatever it is that you have to go do, right? Next thing you know, you're dead. But the thing that would drive you crazy is, like, and George has mentioned this, is like the currency in the game is not just for experience, it's also essentially your currency, right? So it's your runes. So what happens is, if you die, you get up at your next the last grace you checked in at, or the, what is it called, the thing of Marika, which is
the site of Marika,
which is basically, if you die, you won't show up there. You have to go back and collect your gold, your runes, and if you die, you lose those runes. So like, I've lost, I know, George, you lost 15,000 in one night. I've lost 8,000, 9,000 on stupid shit. Trust me.
I've lost 27,000 in one area one time.
Right.
You're just like, all right, well.
That's crazy.
I'll redo it.
Yep.
It's again, it's the game mechanics are a lot of fun. Like the combat system, the move set with all the different weapons are interesting. The story is really well done. The lore is interesting. All the different little groups that kind of want your attention for various reasons. Like we just found Whiteface Vary and his god that wants to kind of destroy everything.
Yeah.
It's it's a lot of, it's fun, it's well written, and it's just mechanically it's great.
It's a good game.
It's frustrating as hell, but it's also
doesn't hold your hand.
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
And I like that because you feel like you actually earned, like, when you get killed by something 10 times and then you finally defeat it, you're like, yeah,
there is a sense of accomplishment. Like
Yeah,
I remember
sure.
like taking down the dragon. I've taken down the dragon a few times now, and it's like, okay, good. Now I feel
Absolutely.
good. And there's other characters that you don't really. Artie, you would hate it. I'm just telling you.
You would hate it, but at the same time, you would love it because it has a lot of stuff that reminds me of your games. There's these amazing weapons, these huge, like, god-killing weapons that are crazy, and it brings me back to some of the stuff that you insert to your game. It's like there's a lot of fun, crazy stuff, but you have to earn those weapons. You have to get to a point where you can wield them correctly. You have to do things to do that. There's a lot of stuff to it, and it's fun experimenting and going through the whole game to do it.
I have a feeling, by the way you're describing it, there'll be a lot of me doing this. Where am I going?
You would never know where you're going. I don't know where I'm going half the time.
You don't know where you're going half the time,
but it doesn't
either.
matter.
And the thing is, part of the beauty of the game is you don't have to follow it linearly. You can go off and do something else. I mean, but
there is direction in the game. The graces will point you in the way that you're supposed to. Like those it'll show you the areas that you're supposed to if you want to do the game story part of it,
the graces,
it points you that you just have to go, but it points you in the direction, but there's so much stuff around that direction that you can spend hours just going exploring and be like, holy, there's this piece of item that will boost my power tremendously for this thing that I'm doing. And you want to do those things, and then so
it becomes it's discovery and danger at every turn, at every corner. You never know. I mean,
Zelda.
Yeah, well, you go down you see like an area, like it's a dark cave. You're like, ah, crap! I got 30,000 ruins on me.
Listen,
I really want to go down there.
What happen is play the game, and then we're online, and I start cursing and yelling, and then we come back to the podcast, and Keith calls me an asshole again.
Oh, you would be. I mean, trust me, I would pay good money to watch you play it.
I'll buy you the game just for you to stream.
Oh, I think it's. I mean.
I'll chip in for that too.
Full disclosure,
because you I know you'd probably hate it, but you might. It depends. It depends because it would frustrate you tremendously.
Well, you'd probably spend an hour and a half creating your character.
Oh yeah, you can. The character creation is really great. You can really change and make the way you want to look.
And then all of a sudden you'll be like
completely different. There's no way anyone will have the same character as you.
And then the only thing that the character creation
it does.
Oh yeah.
But there's crafting.
Yeah.
Not that much though.
It's not that bad.
No, it's. I mean, and again, I go back to your weapon side. You're creating I have a great sword that you can create. I have a +5 great sword. I can make it a +5 sacred great sword. I can make it a +5 quality great. I can. It's very fantasy. Like the idea.
Is it fantasy or is it some other mixed genre?
Dark fantasy.
I would say dark fantasy, high dark fantasy, perhaps something like that.
It's J.R.R. Martin, George R.R. Martin.
When's that last book coming?
There's 2 books. There's 2 books. Well, it doesn't matter because we'll have Elden Ring 2 before we get those 2 books. Guys, I think we've gone way over at this point. So I think we're going to call it a day. We promise you we won't be away for 2 weeks. We'll be back next week again because we obviously love Moon Knight. We'll talk about Moon Knight. And hopefully Artie can regale us with stories of new metal that he's discovered next week because George and I are going to be continuously pounding him with metal suggestions.
That's how I was driving today. I was driving in the car. Maybe it was the show that did it, but I had the music blasting and my hand out the window like this the whole time. I know people are like,
oh, what's guy doing?
What are you doing? I'm looking at people. I'm like, oh.
Then our job is done, George. We raised them
No,
right.
it's not done. We got more to do.
We got more to do. Look, Artie,
Just
you got
because
you got a
everything
shitload of
interacts.
albums to buy now. You got a lot of newer stuff that you're gonna have to get into, especially.
Look, it got me to like look into some albums that I don't have that I got to pick up now too. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there was one other band down there that was mentioned that I'm going to throw out to you guys, Kvelertak, which is a Finnish band. It was one of the songs that was mentioned at the bottom of the list. That's a damn good band too. But
really?
oh, is it?
yeah, it's all in Finnish, but it's fucking rocking as hell. And it's not. It's rock. It's rock, hard rock metal. It's not death metal. It's not. It's really good stuff. And it's on the it's on the
Playlist.
playlist. But Artie, start with Mastodon. Start with Opeth. Keep on going with Ghost. George got Meliora. He got Meliora. He got the album yesterday.
Yep.
Yeah.
The deluxe
be getting
version
it.
with Pope Star, which got a square hammer on it. You got to get it, baby.
Very
Before
lucky.
you know it, we're gonna have to
And
take you to
Typo
Ghost
Negative too. I was very excited for Typo Negative as well.
Which typo did you get?
Dead Again.
Okay, very nice. And did you saw that Slipknot, the first album, the second in Iowa, are coming out on colored vinyl next month. So I'm thinking about those as well. Anyway, guys, we've outed ourselves as metalheads and Keith. So love us, like us, follow us down below, and we love you. And we will see you all next week. Take care,
That's
everybody.
right.
By the Podcast Cosmic.